Welcome back. Ministers, ladies and gentlemen. So after that very interesting two presentations that we had before coffee about showcasing UK leadership in those two fields of life sciences and technology, we now move to the Finance Minister's Outlook, as it's called in our agenda, and we're going to hear some insights from the perspectives of three people who are right in the eye of the storm. So may I welcome to the stage the Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund, Christine Lagarde, George Osborne, the Chancellor of the Exchequer here in the UK, and Angel Gurria, the Secretary General of the OECD. So please, George Osborne is going to be chairing the session, and I leave it to you. This way may be easier, as you like.
Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this session. A particularly warm welcome to my distinguished colleagues, Christine and Angel, and I thank them particularly for taking time to be with us today. I'm conscious this is the last session of the day, and I hope you've enjoyed the mix of politicians and business leaders and others who have been here during the day. Of course, we have this conference on the eve of the London Olympic Games. And the Olympic Games celebrate human endeavour and peaceful competition between the nations of the earth. And this global investment conference celebrates human innovation and industry and showcases Britain as a home for investment in a fiercely competitive world economy. You've heard from the Prime Minister and in other members of the Cabinet. I hope the message that you are receiving is loud and clear, that Britain is open for business. Indeed, we assert that there is no major Western economy that is more open, more welcoming of foreign investment, less protectionist, and more pro-free trade than the United Kingdom. And across all political parties, in all parts of the country, we welcome overseas companies with open arms. In the last few months, we've encouraged Chinese investment in our capital city's water system, Hong Kong investment in our telecoms and gas network, Indian investment in our car making and steel, and today Malaysian investment in a prime property site here in London. And in very difficult global economic environments, and with our own disappointing GDP numbers, we as a government have to work even harder to attract more of this investment. We have to have a relentless focus on the economy. And our message, our sales pitch, if you like, to investors has three components. First, we're dealing with our debts. Second, we're creating the most pro-business tax regime in the developed world. And we're making the long-term structural reforms to secure a more productive future. Let me take each very briefly in turn, and then we will all take your questions. First, in a continent reeling from a sovereign debt crisis, the UK is a country which has demonstrated to the world that it has a credible plan to deal with its debts. In the last 2 years, we've cut our deficit by 25%. And when this government came to office, the UK's cost of borrowing was the same as Spain's and Italy's. Today, of course, their cost of borrowing is more than 6%, but ours is 1.5%. And that market confidence and ultra-low interest rates are precious assets, hard-won and easily squandered. And it is precisely that market confidence and fiscal credibility that allows our independent monetary authority, the Bank of England, to operate a more active monetary policy, expanding the quantitative easing programme, launching with the Treasury the new funding for lending scheme, which will be operational next week to reduce bank funding costs and reduce loan rates in the economy. And it's the same fiscal credibility that means we can use our balance sheet to offer billions of pounds worth of guarantees to new infrastructure projects and indeed export opportunities. You will hear those arguing that we should abandon our plan and spend and borrow our way out of debt. You hear that argument again today. These are siren voices luring Britain onto the rocks, and we won't go there. A credible plan to deal with our debts is an anchor of stability and a prerequisite of recovery. We have that credible plan and we are sticking to it. and that gives confidence to investors looking at the UK. So too should our pro-business reforms of the tax system. I challenge anyone in this audience to name another major Western economy that is reducing its corporation tax aggressively from 28% to 22%. It's cutting its top rate of income tax to attract wealth creators, introducing new generous tax regimes for patents and research and development and the creative industries, and creating a new regime for the headquarters of global firms so that companies are now moving to Britain instead of moving away. This is the most pro-business tax reform in any developed economy today. And the final sales pitch is this. We're also tackling the deep-rooted problems that undermine the competitiveness of many Western economies, including our own. In the last 2 years, we've undertaken major reforms of planning, of higher education, of schools and welfare that we believe will equip Britain for the future. It has involved tough decisions like raising pension ages or reducing public sector pension costs. And it means taking on vested groups, but we've done it. And as I say, despite disappointing GDP numbers, we're determined to continue to tackle the deep-rooted problems that our economy and other economies face. The deficit is down by a quarter, inflation is halved, employment is up, exports are rising, and British businesses are now exporting more to the rest of the world than to Europe. I think that is a sign of openness to the opportunities from the emerging as well as the established economies around the world. And we know we have more to do. Our motivation is simple. It was spelt out by the Prime Minister at the beginning of this conference this morning. We're in government at a time of great change in the world economy, great change and, of course, great uncertainty. And we think that some Western countries will adapt well to that change and cope with that uncertainty, and others, frankly, will not adapt so well. And we have a relentless focus to ensure that Britain adapts to the changing world and thrives in it. These Olympic Games are a showcase of Britain at its best. This conference is a sign of our nation's commitment to welcome the world's investors. Britain is open for business. Thank you, and I will now go over there and we will begin the panel discussion.